from me.
We're not live yet. We haven't sent anything live.
Okay. So thank you to all of you who have tuned in to our Adapt and Thrive session today. So before we get started, I'm just going to talk through a few ground rules and some general information. So just to note that this session today will be recorded, and this recording will be available to you after our conference ends. So this will be after the 22nd of September. You'll also note that you won't have access to ask any questions via your microphone, but during this session, you will have the ability to ask questions through the Q&A facility. I just want to point out that you will notice the delay between when you post your questions and when it goes live. However, we'll also be having a conference cafe at 4:05, and this will be a more informal session where our microphones will be open and you'll be able to discuss in a more open and informal manner with many of our speakers who will be sharing with us during this session. So, as I mentioned before, welcome to our Adapt and Thrive session on supporting students PGT study in the online context. So, as you all well know, we are living in a new normal and supporting our students as they commence a programme of study which will look very different to what we have delivered before. Some of us have had some experience of delivering online learning and teaching over the past few months, but there are unique challenges surrounding supporting students as they commence a programme, as they commence study with us in the upcoming academic year. And it's really important that we put in a lot of thought and effort into supporting them with this transition. We are very lucky today to have a range of wonderful speakers who will be sharing plenty of insights with us and ideas with us as to how we can support our students to the best of our ability during this transition. Just a bit of information about the format of today's session. So each of our speakers will be sharing for 5 minutes. They will be sharing in the order that's shown on the screen now, and they'll be presenting directly one after the other. So we will have a dedicated Q&A slot towards the end of the session. This doesn't mean that you can't post your questions as they speak. Do feel free to do so. Just please note that they won't be responded to till the end of the session, and we will try to get through as many of those questions as possible. However, we have got the conference cafe, as mentioned earlier, which will be a further space to interact with many of our speakers. So without further ado, I will hand over to our first speaker, Freedom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen all right? All right.
Yeah.
So my name's Freedom, and I am a biomedical research MRes student at Imperial. And so my being an MRes student comes in a sort of a different format. So instead of a top portion to my master's program, I have 2 6-month projects. So it's a little bit more like having a job than, traditional sort of uni setup. But I feel like these keys to success are translatable, whether it's to undergraduate study, whether it's a program like mine where it's really research-based, focused, and a bit more work-like, or even, traditional sort of top masters. So these are my keys to success as a student and as a faculty member. Is to set clear expectations and to discuss them thoroughly. So I'll continue to refer back anecdotally, but in one of my projects in my lab, we had a specific lab meeting session as a group that focused on the lab expectations. We were given a letter of expectations to read beforehand to be prepared, and then we had a group meeting where we discussed the expectations, and then we each had a one-on-one meeting, which may sound a little bit like overkill, but for me personally, getting in the one-on-one to discuss these expectations was great because it allowed me to not only understand or express what was expected of me, but what I could expect from my PI. So that one's very important. And obviously academic and professional support. My experience, it depends on what kind of project you're working on or what kind of work you're doing. But for me, I found that having group and one-on-one meetings was beneficial. Specifically, our meetings, our group and one-on-one meetings were once a week. I know other people have more frequent, less frequent, but for us, we seem to be creating new material, something worth talking about, at least one thing worth talking about every week. So weekly was pretty good for us. But most importantly is connection. It's something that's very, very easy to lose in this online learning world, right, is this connection. But if you're working on a team like me, where you work in a small lab and you're really dependent on one another for the successes of the project, forming that connection is something that could suffer online. So a couple of things that I've found in my last lab really helped were this personalization. We have a WhatsApp group, but the WhatsApp chat was really more for in lab, like, hey, does anybody know where these primers are? But since moving online with COVID, we have a Teams chat, but we have an informal Teams chat that includes like movies and television shows we've been watching about. And once a week, we'll have a coffee. I apologize, I lost you. Are we there?
Yes, you're back. Thanks, Freedom.
All right, no, it's fine. It's just coffee. It just seems so silly, but you don't have that stopping by someone else's desk during the day the way you do in person. So creating that environment online has been a source of sort of a feeling of support for me. And I know my peers. I have peers who are in labs that don't have that sort of mid-level personal, mid-level informal, formal, informal kind of connection with their team. And I feel like I've definitely benefited from having that. So if you can personalize it and foster connection within your team, within your course, we benefit as students from that. And that's all I've got. I'd like to thank my time, or you for your time, and my team for all the great ideas.
Great, thank you so much for sharing with us, Freedom. I will now hand over to Margarita.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you see my screen?
Not quite yet, we're just checking.
I'm sorry for that. I don't know why that happens. I tried it.
Right, you're now, 1 second. Great, that's now working for you.
Okay. Anyway, I will explain. I will describe what I was trying to say. So, hi, Margarita. I'm a master's student in genes, drugs, stem cells, novel therapies. And today I would like to share my experience as a master's student during the era of COVID. So it was a great experience. I learned a lot of things for myself instead of my course. And it was a great experience, but there were some challenges that I need to overcome. The basic challenges were the following. At first, I faced some technical issues due to bad, weak internet connections. As everybody worked from home, the internet connection was extremely slow, and that caused delays, and some sessions was rescheduled, that kind of stuff. Then I felt that the lack of interpersonal relationships make me believe that it's harder for me to do networking during the era of COVID. And besides that, now you can see my PowerPoint. I'm sorry. And besides that, I felt the need for face-to-face interaction, and Another problem for me was self-discipline. As I was in my bedroom and I had the same daily routine over and over again, sometimes it was hard for me to stay focused in a session. And was really important to learn how to do time management more efficiently, to deal with the timetables. Besides that, I think it's really important to highlight that something about the computer literacy. Not every student and every professor is familiar with online tech tools about that are out there to help us do online teaching. So that can cause delays, that can cause problems. Like in my case, I couldn't share my screen to show you the PowerPoint. And sometimes there are people who think that it's not professional, but it's just technical issues. But in order to overcome these challenges and these problems, I found ways that were really helpful. Material provide us with several online technological tools and softwares that can use in order to do your discussion or to participate in an online meeting or to share your folders, that kind of stuff. They are for free. You got the license you need, and that makes your life easier. Then I had the opportunity to attend several workshops, online networking events, one-to-one sessions provided by Career Service, which makes me understand more about how can I improve my resume, and I developed my social skills as well. Then I had the opportunity to collaborate with Professor Sarah Ranking in doing an outreach activity named as Imperial COVID-19 Lockdown Lesson. In that case, I was a moderator, and even we worked remotely. We worked smoothly, and I deeply appreciated the fact that technology can help improve your life and can make you work from everywhere. The last but not the least were the classes organized by student societies. They offered a range of activities such as yoga classes, chess, leadership seminars that were really interesting, and that they helped me to spend my free time during self-isolation. Just to mention, I was in self-isolation for 2.5 months because I returned back to Greece and I wasn't allowed to move around. So the only thing that I could do was using my computer and search things online. So thank you, Career Service of Imperial, for that. And what I found the most important thing is the communication. So in my classmates decided to create a group chat to keep in touch and to building a cohort. So we interact via social media and emails. We received weekly updates about how they work home, how life from both students and professors. And our course administrator organized regular catch-up meetings to learn our progress and to give us guidance about the next steps in our course. Even if it's a challenging experience, even if it's a challenging way of learning, I think that there are some advantages. In my case, I think that I developed my resilience and my computer skills to a great extent. I know that right now I didn't prove that I did that, but I promise you I did. And I had the opportunity to work on my own pace and to have more personal time. By personal time, I mean that I had the opportunity to take advantage of all Imperial services that can improve my resume, that can help me understand more things about how research works, and to do my hobby. So I was less stressed than I supposed to be. And I think that improved my whole academic year. This was my experience. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for sharing, Margarita. That was really insightful. And thank you for everyone for bearing with us. We've had a few hiccups, as you will have noticed. But I will now hand over to Heather.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather Hanna. I'm the Clinical Teaching Fellow on both the Pediatrics and Child Health MSc courses, as well as the Medical and Ethics and Law team for our undergrad medical students. Next slide, please. I like to think I've got a bit of experience in remote learning. My original undergrad degree was with the Open University, as was my year in nursing, was the last year of nurses not to be awarded a degree alongside our registered general nurse, registered sick children's nurse qualifications. So I only had a handful of face-to-face classes in the first year, and other than that, it was remote learning on my own, which I loved. I could go as slow as I liked and read around the topics I didn't understand. The competition, well, it was just me. I had no idea how other people were doing. Well, we could exchange email addresses, we could create a camaraderie, but most of us were extremely busy with our own lives and didn't find it was vital or even helpful to learning in general at that time. More recently, I finished my postgraduate diploma in university lecturing and teaching at Imperial, and we, as many cohorts, went online precipitously and unexpectedly. Actually, it went fine. It took less hours in real time than the face-to-face sessions would have, although of course we did a lot of work on our own. We didn't have to travel to the sessions, and that was really good. Okay, there was new tech to master, and we're all still learning. But the clear signposting from the course team helped, and we still achieved all of our learning goals. So that team models great behavior for us. We can use videos to chunk our own learning, and there are response forms embedded in the videos, so we can choose how we approach our own learning to some degree. And on days when I'm finding it hard to focus, it's really nice to be able to do 10 minutes and then go get a cup of tea if I want to. Even more recently, I completed a Future Learn course on how to teach online. I found the scaffolding and the signposting really helpful, and they had this neat trick of encouraging student dialogue on every page of learning. And they had a lovely demonstration of how to successfully chunk the materials. I learned as much from doing it as I learned on the course. So my PG students are on a part-time course with us, and they've got a full clinical caseload in either medicine or allied healthcare professions. So during active COVID times, they've never been busier. My feeling is we should do the same thing in different ways. So instead of swings, which just go back and forth, maybe we should do swing, where everybody creates new ways to meet with our students, both asynchronously and synchronously. And we create students spaces for them to talk or encourage them to make their own spaces away from us. Also, we give them the tools and enable them to use them successfully, transforming Blackboard from a dead space to a vibrant space. Instead of roundabouts that go nowhere, we do roundabouts where they're in the driving seat. So we scaffold, we signpost, we give them a roadmap, but then we let them drive their own learning. We let them contribute to the whole group learning, giving them other routes to explore that they discovered and found to be helpful that they share with others. We help them to do remote group work so they learn together from each other and demonstrate great social constructivism. Next slide, please. So the tools we're using are a triad this year of Blackboard, OneNote, and Teams. We're making a video for them on how they fit together and how best to learn using these tools. We're managing our expectations by being really explicit. This is how you'll be learning with us. These are our expectations. These are your weekly tasks. You will be responsible for your own learning as well as your part in the group learning. We gain buy-in by being really honest. If you study with us, you need to be all in. We're inclusive by giving them options. You can work with others as well as on your own. So we try and cover both introverts and extroverts in our approach. Really, we're teaching them the same things, just in a different way. And we're learning too. As always, every cohort will be different, but making time for them to talk and get ongoing feedback about what we're doing may well make us better as teachers and get them better as independent learners. Perhaps we should think of mining the positives in an appalling year, which has driven change and the way we can make our courses more accessible to our students as they learn in an ongoing dialogue with us and fit their education into their already busy lives. It's not to say there aren't challenges. Just this morning, I was part of an undergrad meeting with over 250 students where we were Zoom bombed, or I guess Teams bombed in this case, because it was on Teams. And it was really difficult because someone was very deliberately posting very, very offensive comments, and they knew the technology. As soon as they got tossed out, they came in again under a different name. They had thought this through. Now the FEO is investigating, but I just wanted to say, be on the lookout for their recommendations. What I learned from that is to, even though it's a pain with 250 students, to use the foyer, because then if we toss somebody out, they can't just scoot straight back in again without us allowing them in. So I learned a lot from that. It was a hard lesson. It was a difficult thing, and we've had to reschedule and literally stop the students learning today. But I think we're all learning. This is a challenging time, but I do feel that we'll be better when we get straight through it. Sorry, next slide. And I think we'll emerge from it all stronger than ever with better teaching, more inclusivity, and I think it will be good in the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather. There was some really brilliant and practical insights and examples there, giving me personally a lot of food for thought. Great, I will now hand over to Katerina.
Hello everyone, I'm Katerina. I'm teaching and research fellow in cardiology. I would like to share my experience as a teacher and also as a student, because last year I was involved in postgraduate certificate at Imperial in teaching and learning. Next slide, please. Right, so I put here some personal experience of the student. So I would say initial challenges for me, because the first half of our postgraduate certificate was face-to-face meetings and face-to-face workshops. And since the lockdown in March, obviously we had only online workshops. It was very difficult to stay concentrated because I was working from my office, right, and receiving emails, calls, people around the office. It was very hard to stay concentrated during the workshops. What else? It's not easy to ask questions as so many people online, so many students. You don't want to interrupt the lecturer or tutor. Time constraints, right? So it was not really a lot of time for questions at the end. Another challenge, I would say, that we didn't have a lot of clear instructions in terms of time. For example, we were given some tasks and we were not set how many minutes we need to spend on these particular tasks. And obviously, from my experience, lack of face-to-face teaching, lack of these coffee breaks with the social interactions where we can enjoy, each other, seeing face-to-face, tutors can chat with each other is a big minus. Well, some beneficial things that are, there is no need to travel far away. Yeah, you can easily access Microsoft Teams or Zoom from everywhere, from home, from work. This is beneficial. I was thinking about possible solutions, and I would probably recommend to do smaller groups during the big group sessions online, where students can have a chat with each other and with the tutor. And also probably teachers or tutors can involve students who are shy more in a discussion, because we are all different. Some students are more active and they usually lead the conversation, and some are just shy and not really involved in a discussion. I think we need to put a particular attention to that. And I think we need to do workshops as interactive as possible during the online sessions, dividing probably students into small groups. Next slide. Right, my experience as a teacher, because I teach students in the hospital, they are coming here on site and we do mainly face-to-face teachings. However, we started to do online sessions, and I can notice that it's difficult to involve everyone in the discussion. Obviously, you can't see all faces of the students, right? You can't understand how they're enjoying the session, or do they understand it or not. Because during the live session, it's easy to understand. Maybe you can talk a little bit less difficult for them, and obviously less interaction between students in online sessions, right? But I'm sure we are getting used to it, and we're all learning, so we need to be familiar with this new normal. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Katerina. It's really interesting to hear your experiences of being a student and also a teacher as well. Great, so I'll hand over to our final. Now move on to our Q&A section. So hopefully you can see my slide. So once again, please do ask your questions through the Q&A facility, and it will be extremely helpful if you could indicate which speaker your question is for. That will be really helpful to us in terms of facilitating and managing that conversation. So my colleague Sharon is helping me out with this Q&A. Sharon, I believe there have been a couple of questions posted. Are you able to read one out for us?
Yes, there's a question here about, I think it's probably one for Freedom and Margarita, really, about how students feel when they feel alone. So the question is, how alone do students feel with these matters? Do they feel their classmates are experiencing the same? Or do different tastes exacerbate classwork, i.e. introverts and extroverts wanting different things from classroom interaction?
Well, I can say for certain that how I feel about my sort of interconnectedness with my program has completely changed. I was fortunate that the first 6 months of this degree were in person for me, so I was able to form relationships with people in my course. But since then, we haven't really had any course activities that are involved with all of us. Like I said, my program is research-based rather than taught, so we don't have classes together, and we've already completed our journal clubs. So interacting with my classmates, I interact with my friends that I've made from the course beforehand, but I can say that I haven't made new friends since COVID, which is where I think things like the coffee time that my lab does could be useful. So if my program had a coffee time, I think that would really help students who are in labs who don't necessarily have that sort of personal connection that I'm fortunate enough to receive. And whether or not they're going through the same things, the people that I talk to, we all seem to be going through sort of the same thing. But there's definitely a dichotomy between introvert and extrovert expectations from courses and sort of what we would prefer, right? Because some people are really missing the human connection. Other people are like, this is the best. And so trying to find that sweet middle, I think, is going to be really dependent. Like Heather spoke about creating different activities to suit different types of people. Like you could do group work if you wanted to. I think that's a great idea, because for some people who are really missing that sort of interaction with their peers, that's an opportunity for them. But the introverts aren't being forced, like, wow, this is so much more challenging in its own ways. Well, I wouldn't say more challenging. It's challenging in different ways. And I'm still trying to adapt to this. And now I have to do group work, you know. So I thought that was a really great idea.
Great, thank you so much, Freedom. I don't know whether, Margarita, you have any thoughts on that, or whether any of our staff members actually have any thoughts.
I totally agree with Freedom. In my case, because it's a taught master, so it's quite different. Everyone at first feel that they are alone, that they need help and guidance. But then you realize that you have to do some things by yourself, and that everybody will be there to help you and to provide you with their knowledge and their support in different ways. I believe that psychological support nowadays is more important than any other kind of support. And I believe that whether you are introvert or extrovert, you have the same feeling, that you miss being in the classroom, that you miss the interaction with others. But no matter what, you can learn new things, and you can adapt to the new circumstances. You need more time to do so, but I think at the end you can do that, and it's the same or even better.
Great, thank you so much. Do any of our teaching staff members have any thoughts on that question? Anything they've perceived from their own experience of teaching? No? Great, okay, so we've got another question here, which is directed at you, Katerina. Do you think the process of clinical teaching will change to be less face-to-face in the future?
Right, so thank you for the very interesting question. It was a definitely very difficult period for us as a clinical teachers, right? However, we are investigating this question and we are trying to adapt something new in order to be able to help students to learn. So we are trying this virtual word round where we put some special mechanism to show them patients, and then they are able to see that via Microsoft Teams, via online. The only problem is because we need to have so the patients should agree, right, on recording them. It's a bit of a challenge. And the other thing I would say that students should be present on the ward round in reality, because they learned from patients. They need to examine them in real face-to-face presentations, right? Face-to-face communication rather than just virtual. But I would say that it will be more less face-to-face teaching in the future because of this current situation. And I hope we will come back when COVID finishes.
Yes, absolutely. Fingers crossed. But I'm sure we'll learn a lot from our process of moving to online learning and teaching. Great. So we've got another question. So as an MRes student, would you like to have something such as classes or seminars in the future if we continue to have education mostly online, since only social activities may only address some of the needs of students within their groups of peers? I don't know, Freedom, you have any thoughts on that?
I do, yes. So we do have some classes, but I have found very few classes are actually sort of involved. So Dr. Stefano, yours is one of the only online lectures that I've attended this year that you were involved with us and we were involved with you. And I feel like that makes a big difference, because just because we're all sitting in the same online room doesn't mean people are paying attention. I think sort of, adding more lectures, I don't know, would help as much as creating more involved lectures. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Stefano, I wonder if you have any kind of comments in response to that, because that was a session that you ran. So I wonder if you have any thoughts related to that and how you kind of set up for that and that kind of interactive atmosphere and set expectations for that.
Clearly, having both online and in-person event can also be a solution for the aforementioned neurodiversity, for example. And what I think is that active learning can simplify also the connection with the alumni. So what I organized this year for the intro week is having 8 alumni from previous transition neuroscience cohort to have a presentation about their own work to the students and then take their questions. So building a strong sense of belonging online is challenging, but it's not impossible, and it is definitely worth it.
Great, and actually we have another question directed at MRes students. So could setting up optional mechanisms for connecting current MRes students with alumni help expand their social world?
I think that would be an amazing opportunity. I feel like I have missed out sort of on some of those more traditional opportunities to make connections, and my connections are very insular. I'm not walking by faculty, I'm not interacting with faculty. It's not my PI saying, oh, well, go ask this postdoc from this lab really quick. Everything has to be done online by me. No sort of interaction externally to form connections like that. I think that would be a great, not just sort of personal opportunity, but a professional opportunity as well. Just the more people you get to know in your field or from your program, the better. And it's just, it has been lacking, I feel, in the transition online, is this opportunity. And I know the career service has opportunities, and that's awesome, but sort of people coming from my program, that would help me a lot, because what I'm going to be getting out of my master's is sort of specific, whereas a taught master's may be more applicable or different programs. So seeing people from my program and connecting with them and seeing what they've been able to do with this work, I think that would be really useful.
That's great. I actually have a question related to that. So quite often we find, I'm sure many of us will experience that in our teaching practice, when we put lots of kind of, thought into putting on these optional extras for students, we don't always find that the uptake is what we would have hoped. But we don't particularly want to bombard our students, because we know that particularly with master's study, they have a lot on their plate, but we are also aware that they would benefit from these extras. So I don't know whether anyone has any thoughts on that.
In direct relation to talking with the alumni, I feel like that's one of the things that wouldn't be very hard to sell students on. I know you're talking about we're so busy, and a lot of the optional stuff, even if it would help us, we're like, I'm less worried about my resume course right now than I am about writing up my final report or preparing for my viva. I think that that would be something that there's enough sort of like ingrained value in that experience, rather than us having to make it more appealing. But I definitely have experienced that, where we're discussing new programs and trying to add stuff to the curricula, and it's always like, well, can we get people to buy into this or not? And I feel like it's good professionally and personally. I don't think you're going to get the buy-in from introverts or people that already sort of know where they're going, people who already have their PhD offers. I think that we might see less involvement from them, but I don't think that most of the things we've discussed have been things I would sign up for, and I definitely wouldn't say I had free time.
Yeah, I wonder if, Margarita, you have any thoughts related to that as well?
Sure. It's a good question. I was thinking about it while Freedom was talking. I think that it's really challenging nowadays to get to the real world and to find a job or to find any other position, even if it's a PhD or no matter what. I face the same problem. I can tell you that I have been rejected for several applications. And another problem may be that I'm an international student now. I'm not a European. I'm international because due to the Brexit. And that makes me feel really stressed. And sometimes I feel like I'm useless. But I'm trying to do other things and to do more outreach activities or things that I like that are more entertaining. And I'm about to be accepted in Imperial Lectures, I think. It's the network that for all the Imperial alumni that you can join. And they give you insight information about how it is to find a job, how easy it is to find a job, or if they knew about the positions, things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's really honest and insightful. We'll need to wrap up our Q&A very soon, but very quickly, I actually have a question for Stefano. So you shared a really interesting 10 steps to success. I wondered whether you have any examples of where you've implemented any of those, any particular examples of how exactly that works.
Yes, I can mention some examples. So already before the implementation of the curriculum review, in the MSc courses, we had active learning assessments. For example, we had students writing a virtual grant proposal in Module 2, or doing a pitch presentation of a grant for one of the optional modules. After the curriculum review, we also introduced a editorial writing in module 3 and an hackathon for the computation neuroscience module. So these are just 4 examples, and we have positive feedback from the students. So it's always encouraging to see how we can align higher education experience with the world outside the lecture hall.
Great, thank you very much. I see that I'm afraid I've missed a couple of questions here, but it'll be great actually if we could carry those forward to the conference cafe, because I'm aware that Margarita and Freedom will be able to join us there. So just to wrap up, thank you so much to all of our speakers for sharing such insightful presentations with us, and also thank you very much to Sharon, who's been helping me on the tech side of things. Thank you for bearing with us whilst we've had a few hiccups. We really hope that you will join us for our conference cafe, which is at 4:05, and this will be a much more informal environment where you can speak to our presenters a bit more freely. And we'll also have our second conference day on Tuesday, the 22nd of September next week, and we'll be having sessions on classroom management, on personal and professional student and staff identities, and we'll also have another conference cafe session then. So I will now post the link to the conference cafe. Oh, sorry, I'm posting the link to our webpage where you will find the link to our conference cafe. Great, thank you so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.